All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Becoming Someone Pod. My name is Xavier. We got my co-host here, Marco.
Let's go.
We have a special guest today, Giovanni Viscara. What's up, my friend? How you doing?
What up, guys? How's it going?
AKA Gio?
Yep, Gio.
Can I call you that, bro? I just met you today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hell yeah.
AKA
Gio, people.
Gio. Yeah, he goes by Gio. You do go by Gio.
Gio, Johnny, either one.
Johnny?
Yeah.
Oh, you do go by Johnny. Just talk a little bit closer to your mic. There we go. Yeah. All right, guys. So for those of you who don't know Giovanni Viscara, he's a creative director. He owns Create Printing and Design and Birds Company, Stockton, California native.
209.
Yes, sir. What's up, dude? How you doing?
We're doing well, man.
You look fit as hell, bro.
Dang, I appreciate it. I've been trying.
My guy, okay, so I see this guy every morning at the gym. 4 a.m. It's like, or like 5 a.m., right? 4? It's like clockwork for this guy.
Hammer Lane? Yeah. Because I was there a couple times, but I don't remember seeing a tank up in there, bro.
Oh, yeah. I'm in there, bro. You weren't looking.
Maybe I'm hitting all the machines with the ladies. I don't know.
But you know what? You see the same people every morning at the gym, like the same crowd.
But 4 a.m.'s got a good crowd. I'm not going to lie. Everybody in there has something to do that day. That's why they're getting there at 4 a.m., so they're not messing around. Everyone's trying to work out and, get something accomplished.
Yeah, bro. I see when I was going at that time, like 4:40, 5 o'clock, like they're there to get the workout in and we out. Like there's no sitting on the bench or on the machine for 5 minutes checking Instagram. And I've seen this guy do it right before a shift. Like it's like 45 minutes top.
He's in there 30, 40.
I feel like I'm always rushing when I see you. And you always have some like great story or some shit that's going on in your life that I'm like super, like I want to sit there and listen to him like, fuck, bro. Like I got 2 minutes, man. I got to get out of here. I got to jam out.
There's always some type of drama going on in my life, something I got to handle.
Dude, there really is. If you like ever heard like, well, we're about to hear some of the stories.
Hell yeah, dude.
There's always some crazy stuff popping off in your life. And I just sit there and look at you like, how does this guy handle it all?
Well, dude, why keep the audience waiting? What crazy thing happened so far this week or last week?
I mean, this week and last week, we're just, I don't know about anything super crazy. Just really working through a lot of orders with a lot of large companies, trying to keep up with deadlines and just trying to obviously maintain everything in my personal life. I have a daughter now, so that's something amazing. But it definitely comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of stuff that I have to do just besides work. Yeah. So I think every week I have some new. Every day there's new hurdles, new things I got to tackle. I call it just fires I got to put out. And that's just kind of what I do every day.
What does that look like? Like your day to day, like for people who don't know what Create Design Printing, like what does that look like?
I mean, Create Printing and Design is, what I'm doing every day. I get up at 3 a.m. I'm at the gym at 4, get out of there about 6, get to the shop at about 7. And then I have like 2 hours, between 7 and 9 before we actually open, where I can just kind of prep, just get everything ready for the day for my guys so that I can somewhat be ahead. So when 9 o'clock comes around, I'm not scrambling trying to, do production stuff. I'm just really there, ready to attack what comes at me. And then at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. You do pretty much everything, like shirts, pants, hats. I mean,
with apparel printing, yeah. So, we do premium automatic screen printing. We're doing direct-to-garment digital printing and embroidery. And then just a lot of what I have to do is a lot of graphics, graphic work, web design, things like that. That's what we're mainly specialized.
Bro, so when the Becoming Someone pod gets their gear going, we got some swag for the fans, for our guests, like a goodie bag on the way out. We got our guy right here, bro. Yeah. Gio's the guy.
He's the plug for sure, and he does great work. We've done a couple projects together. Some of them fell through, bro.
Is he behind the banana sweater?
Yeah.
Hell yeah,
500
dude.
of them.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, no, the banana hoodie is very well known amongst the running community. I feel like when I post on Instagram and I'm wearing the hoodie, there's always somebody who DMs me or comments about the hoodie.
I think we designed that, you and I, in my office one night. On the fly. Yeah.
And we've been everywhere, right? Like outside of our local community, and like that's a dope ass sweater. Yeah. Like, where'd you get that? Yeah. And sometimes they don't even say anything. Like we go to expos because I'm that eye. I'm trying to capture everything, yeah. And I'm like, hey, dude, like these people are just seeing the sweater. They want to ask, but you know what I mean. They just don't have the courage to.
I didn't know what the banana meant when he first showed it to me. I was like, how does this relate to running at all? So now that I know about it, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Be handing out bananas after each race.
Right.
And be slinging them.
What is that, for the potassium or something?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's almost like a formality at this point. Like every race, I don't know why of course you get your medal. You get your banana, and then
Yeah.
they give you like a water, sometimes like a chocolate milk or something. But there's always a banana at the end of a race.
Hey, so I heard now that at races that you can pull out early and still get a medal.
Oh,
That's something I just
LA?
recently told my runner.
LA, that's crazy. We're talking about bananas pulling out early, and then bananas and Xavier are synonymous, bro.
wait, what did you say about a salami?
Synonymous.
Oh, it's anonymous.
You and bananas.
What does that mean?
It's an inside
hand in
joke.
hand, go
Yeah,
together.
go hand in hand.
Like, you
For
can't
all
mix
my
one without the
people
other.
for all my people that lives in those Wallaco posts.
Oh,
That's
see,
what I'm
I knew
talking
this was
about.
some dirty shit going on right here. He's talking about my thing.
Snuffleupagus.
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 Yeah, man. So how long? I mean, has Create, Print, and Design been open? Like, how long have you been doing that for?
We're in year 10. We're in year 10
Year
right now.
10?
Yeah, it's 10th year.
No way.
Yeah, for
You've
sure.
been at that same location?
No, we've had 3 locations. I mean, I had the first one was over off Hammer Lane, and that was just a small little 700 square foot warehouse that I was just in there by myself, printing, talking to people, just doing it all by myself. And then I had a partner in the beginning of it, but I had to do the legwork. You know, when I got into the printing business, it was on a complete fluke. It wasn't anything that was planned out. I had just had a clothing brand, then I had an opportunity to start a printing company, and I jumped at it. You know, I was in a rough place in my life where, you know, that was just something that was kind of handed to me, so I took it and I ran with it. And then once we grew from that location, we went to another place over off El Dorado, you know, by Eric's Pizza out there in that little strip mall, and that was cool. And then that's when I started, you know, hiring people. And then in 2019, saw really, really good things happening up until that point. And then we took the big
That was
jump.
COVID, the COVID year.
Well, that was 2020, but 2019, I mean, 2017 to 2019, you know, business was doing really well. But I mean, I had like a sweatshop in there. I mean, we literally had 4 manual presses. I had 4 guys in a line. You know, it got not, you know, in the summertime, it would just be hot as hell. You couldn't cool it down. But we were doing, you know, we were producing a lot. And I had an opportunity, did a couple big jobs, and I had an opportunity to triple my shop in size. Bought like 150 grand in new automatic printing equipment, so we no longer did like manual printing, and that was that was a big step up from what we were doing. You know, I tell people before, you know, we were like a big print shop. Now I feel like I'm a small printing company because I have mentors and people that that own other printing companies, you know, in other cities and stuff. I mean, they have 3 times the equipment I have, you know. But these are people.
Some of those machines are intense. They're huge.
They're huge. Yeah, they're huge. You know, and I, you know, we have a big one, but I mean, I know, you know, someone that's like a mentor to me. You know, he has 3 of them. You know, he does stuff for, you know, Disney, and, you know, it's a lot of just some you know, crazy companies, stuff that you got to put in. You don't just get those accounts, you know, just on the fly. You know, you got to put in some work for a long period of time to really lock those.
You kind of have to like build your reputation, because I imagine like these companies, these brands, they don't just reach out to somebody who posts every once in a while. Like, you kind of have to like show that you've worked with other brands and companies before, like build that rapport like with other brands, and then they give you like a shot. I'm thinking more so like with social media for me. I don't think I started working with bigger brands until I got that one big break, and then it was like the floodgates open where like all these brands started to pour in, like, okay, like this guy's like, you know, reputable. We can work with him. So I figure it's like the same thing.
I think with the printing industry, I mean, I think there's a lot of. It's mainly, I would say, it's more off social media, but it's definitely, you got to build a little bit of reputation for yourself. People have to hear about you. Similar to social media, but it's just like real social. You know what I mean?
I know. I saw that like on your intake form. It's like not the social media version of success.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's just. I think there's a big thing on social media with optics. You know, I think what you look like, or, you know, what your perceived image is. You know, I try not to read too much into social media, just because, you know, everyone looks super successful on social media. I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy to look really successful when I think, just, you know, in my business and just the things that I've seen, it's been more about you know, just the work I put in, you know, and it's hard to quantify that in like an Instagram post. You know what I mean?
It's everyone's highlight reel.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and social media is a great way to do that, you know, but I think it makes people think they got to get so far so fast, when really, you know, I've taken 10 years to just get to the point where I'm at, and it's taken, you know, some massive fall offs multiple times, and then me figuring out, you know, what did I do wrong and how I'm going to fix that to grow. You know, I would say every part where I'm trying to grow, if I'm not taking care of everything that came before that, I can't get to that next level. It's like building a house on a bad foundation. You know what I'm saying? And I think a few times, just getting when I got into business, I had no business experience. You know what I'm saying? So everything that I learned was just on the fly. By trial and error. And there was a lot more errors than there were success, and a lot more trials that I went through. To even get to where I'm at now. And I'm not. I don't think I'm even halfway where I'm going to be. Not even close to that. But learning, just learning curve. It's a huge learning curve in anything, and I've just kind of taken it all on the chin by myself.
So you mentioned the business starting to scale and grow, and you're seeing the other side of things, 17, 18, 19, but then we get hit with the pandemic. How was that transition, or was it like certain companies that were essential for certain things? Like, were you? How was that?
I mean, we were definitely. Everyone still wanted apparel. I would say prior to the pandemic, I was doing really well up at my smaller shop, and when I went to the bigger locations, again 3 times the size of what I was at. I just did that because I had a big chunk of money off a couple of jobs, and I was like, I'm not going to have this forever. I just wanted to do it. I think I've always kind of put myself in the next position before I'm truly ready for it, and then I grow into it, right? And when I grew into it, the first few months, I started seeing, closer, 5 figures coming out every month just in overhead, and I was like, holy shit! I was like, you gotta make more sales, and I was a little bit scared. Like right when the pandemic happened, pandemic was the most amazing thing for me.
PPP check or what?
Just not necessarily for me, but for everybody else who was getting them.
Yeah.
Everybody was starting a brand. Everyone was starting a business. Everyone was starting a dog kennel. That was the.
Oh, dude, I see those cars all over stock.
Oh man, what I mean? It was crazy, but I went from doing a good amount in sales to doing over 100,000 every month, and that was a huge jump, and that's one of the things I say, like that I saw that success, and I was like, oh shit! I was like, I'm gonna make $1 million this year. Just I'm making $1 million, and I thought that it was just like lit. Everything was good from there, and I started. I bought a $120,000 BMW. I started going on these expensive vacations. I started just doing a whole bunch of things, thinking that the money wouldn't dry up, and the pandemic, it lasted for a while. That money came in for people for a while, but it wasn't reality. And I started just whenever I had a problem, I was just throwing some money at it, just like whatever. I'm good. I'm gonna keep making more money. And that's what I was saying about like really building a foundation and having something solid to build off of. Systems in business. Business to me is all about systems. If you don't have systems in place, you're literally just riding. You're riding wild. You know what I mean?
You said you have mentors, right? During that time where the business is doing really well, did you have those mentors in place to let you know, hey man, let's not spend all that money because we're gonna need it for later down?
Again, I had connections to people that, like the guy who I consider my mentor now. I had connections to him through that time. But when I started making, $100,000 a month, and in sales, not that I wasn't putting $100,000 in my pocket, right? But when I started doing really well, I wasn't listening to nobody. I thought I figured it out.
Don't worry, bro. The IRS is not listening on this.
Yeah, I've already dealt with all that too. So we're all good. I'm locked in my
Straight.
IRS. I have some of the IRS that I've worked with.
Bro, the IRS is the biggest hassle. Like, it's crazy at that there's this government organization that can literally take away your shit if you don't pay taxes. Like, I find that so crazy.
So I was hearing another pod recently, shout out to La Platica. They were saying, Josh was saying something like, let's say I make $20,000 that I already paid taxes on, right? And then let's say I have 16,000 left, and I give Gio 5,000, but then now Gio needs to pay taxes on those 5,000 that I already paid taxes on. That's crazy.
Or I'll give you a better example, right? You buy a house, you pay taxes. You rent it out to somebody, you pay taxes on the rental income. If you sell that house for more than you bought it for, you pay taxes again. You pay taxes triple. You're always paying taxes on every little thing. Every little exchange of money, tax.
That's why they're trying to get rid of actual money and just trying to go digitally so they get tax.
Well, that, yeah. I mean, exactly. Yeah, they're trying to control everything. But I think the biggest cheat code, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this too, is having a business where you can shelter or quote unquote hide income or make it business expense, right? Like you can kind of like, there's this gray area where you can use some of that income from having a business and use it kind of like their personal expenses, but it also falls under the business expense. So you kind of shelter yourself from paying so much taxes.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
That's for off camera.
You know, I think just the biggest thing with business and taxes and doing all that stuff, bro. I mean, you gotta do it the right way. Like, brother, once they sink their teeth into you, you know, you're gonna get exposed for pretty much whatever you think. You know what I mean? You know, again, I say like systems, bro. Systems in place, and when you get a big chunk of money, don't just think that you made all that profit. Put part of it away for taxes, whatever that is. Put part of it away for CDTFA for your sales taxes. Put part of that away for EDD because you have payroll taxes, you got employee taxes. I mean, it comes out of every pocket, bro. And you know, that's one of the things I learned. You know, I learned that the hard way. You know, I learned that when in 2020 I went from having 3 employees, I had 6 or 7, and then I had everyone on payroll. I mean, bro, just having payroll, they tell you that's what you want to do, but I mean, if it's expensive.
Yeah. Sounds like being in business for 10 years has made you a tax expert.
I mean, it has. You know, I learned it the hard way. You know, I got audited. You know, I went through that whole process. So, bro, in business right now, I've gone through everything that I think someone could go through in business. I've had to deal with every single, you know, government agency. You know, I've had to get that in line, and I basically had to learn. You know, so much you just make money and you just keep going, keep making money, keep going. You think it's good, but bro, like eventually it's going to catch up to you. You have to do your due diligence. You have to do the right things when you're making it, because bro, it comes back to bite you in the ass. And that's why I say, like, if you can't build a house on like a successful, you know, build on a shaky foundation. Like, you got to have systems in place, else that shit's going to crash down. And I've had that happen to me.
Well, man, like, yeah, no, I definitely, you've told me about like some of the stuff that you've gone through. And yeah, you've gone through quite a bit, like, especially with like the whole audit situation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, bro, like doing this for, you know, 10 years, that's just a testimony of like everything you've learned.
Yeah.
This guy's just in the camera. That's wild.
Yeah.
Kind of, what's going on here? First day. Anyway, so I think just being in business for the last 10 years is like a testimony to like everything that you've learned, right? Like you've actually you said you've made a lot of errors along the way, but you learned along the way, and to be open and functioning and in business still after 10 years, bro, that shows a lot, but that shows your resilience. But I want to go back because you did mention, like, what was Gio doing before all this business stuff? Because you did mention there was a point in your life that you got everything taken away from you and you had a decision to make. Like, you can either crash and burn or whatnot, or you can choose to better your life. Like, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, you know, bro, I had some things happen to me, you know, when I was a little bit younger in my 20s that were life-changing things. There's life-changing losses, you know. I wouldn't take it back at all because, you know, I've always been a hustler, bro. I've always had something going on, you know, something that's going to make me a good amount of money, something that might not be necessarily legal or whatever, but I was always doing something, and I was always seeing success at it. You know, taking risks has always been something that I've just been accustomed to, and I've just always seen that as part of the process of being successful. You know, whether it's, you know, risks in business or, you know, risking with your freedom type of stuff, you know, I always did it, and I did it very quickly. I didn't think twice about it. But yeah, when I was 26, you know, I was doing a bunch of things I shouldn't have been doing, and I got everything taken from me. Literally one day I woke up, you know, I had $250,000 in my bank account. I had fucking everything I wanted, big 3,200 square foot, brand new house, stick ass BMW, you know, all tricked out. I had all these things. And it was amazing. You know, every day I woke up like, what do I want to do? You know, I was doing a bunch of things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I never thought that those things would stop.
You were 26, you said?
26 when I got, you know, in trouble. And then, you know, my house got raided. You know, I got pulled over on the freeway by a helicopter.
Were you there when they raided the house?
No, they were watching, you know, I was under surveillance, and I left one day. And, you know, I used to just drive I had a 7 Series BMW at that time too. And I mean, I used to drive wild, right? So I hopped on the freeway, I going 100 miles an hour with, a couple pounds of weed with me. And they thought that I was running. They thought that I was like onto them, right? And the police, there was a helicopter following over me, 15 cop cars, the narcotics team, like a lot of crazy shit, bro. And I got pulled over on an off ramp, and I just knew right when I pulled over, I saw like a helicopter circling me. I was like, man, this ain't regular, this ain't regular. And, I was doing things for a long time. I've been a hustler since I was like 14 years old.
You were in that lifestyle.
I mean, in just things I shouldn't have been doing, you know what I mean, for a long period of time. And that was normal to me. And I always had great success. Most everyone knew what I was doing. So no one was really around me telling me no. People were, just reaping the benefits of what I was doing. And
You probably felt unstoppable.
yeah, I think to a certain degree you do.
You start making all this money, you're driving a nice car, you live in a nice house.
I put a lot of people on,
You had a good team around you, I bet.
I mean, I'm a very giving person, bro. And like, things have come to me pretty easy, and I always tried to help other people do the same thing. I've always tried to help other people do what I do. I'm not a greedy person. I try to put people on. And I think when I lost all the things that I lost, the only thing that really saved, one of the things that really saved me was relationships. Relationships that I had with certain people who knew what I was about, and in a tough time, not necessarily helped me, but I had a good name. I had a good name, and when I got lost in all that stuff, and I got in trouble. It didn't take me more than a couple hours of sitting in a jail cell to understand. I was just like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And, I think to myself, I could probably be successful at anything that I want to be successful at. And I was just choosing the wrong thing. And I just remember sitting there that first night, I was just like, God, like, if you just somehow help me out of this situation, I'll change everything. I'll change everything. I can't. I was extremely scared of what was going to happen to me.
Dude, I bet.
I didn't know what was going on. So when all that stuff happened, like I said, I got out. I had nothing in my name, literally nothing. I had everything taken from my house. They left like a few pairs of jeans and like 2 white T-shirts in my house. Took everything: my shoes, hats, clothes, memorabilia, jewelry, cars, like everything. And they cut my power, right? Because I was doing things with electricity. These shouldn't.
So wait, so they pulled you over when you got off the off ramp. You went straight to jail.
Mm-hmm. They went straight to my house.
And then they went to your house. How long were you in jail for?
So, I was only there for like, it's crazy. So when they pulled me over, they were like, hey, where do you live at? And I told them I lived in Stockton, but they already knew where I lived at. And they took me to jail, and they spent like 12 hours in my house.
And you were just like in this holding area.
I was just in a jail cell at the police department. And the guy told me when he took me in there, he was like, yeah. I was like, how long am I going to be here? I was like, what's going on? He's like, oh, we'll be quick at your house. And in my mind, I was like, they're not going to be quick. It's going to be a while. And again, like I said, I was just doing a lot of things that I shouldn't have been doing, bro. And
but you got bailed out like after 12 hours or whatever.
The craziest thing was that my bail was extremely low. It was like $20,000, so you only had to pay $2,000. And when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going home. I was like, I'm going home. But that doesn't mean shit, because you still gotta face those things at some point. I fought a case for 18 months. The first thing that they offered me was going to prison for 3 years. I was 26 years old. I was selling weed. People talk about.
This is probably like your first offense then, right?
It was like my second big offense. You know what I mean? Other things, something else that happened to me when I was a little bit younger, but this is the first thing where it was serious, bro. There was a lot of money, there was a lot of drugs, there was just a lot of things going on. And again, like I shouldn't have been involved in it, bro. And so, like I said, I sat there and I just told you, I prayed, and I was just like, God, just like somehow get me out of this, and I will find a different way.
Would you say that was your rock bottom?
Absolutely. I mean, bro, you go from having the amount of things and funds and what I had, like, to having nothing. Yeah, bro. I mean, you can't go much lower than that. I mean, the only place lower is you're in jail. And so I was there. I got out of that, and I literally had nothing. Luckily, when that had happened, I had someone that owed me, it was like $6,000 or something. And they paid me, and I took that $6,000, and instantly, I had to find a place to live. I had to find a car, and I had to find what the fuck I was going to do. And luckily, some of the relationships that I had was someone who owned a big apartment complex, and I called them. They said, hey, come tomorrow, we got an apartment for you. Now, I went from a 3,200 square foot house to a 500 square foot apartment. You know, I took a 27-foot U-Haul and like 10 good dudes came and moved me out of this house that had no electricity and moved all my shit into a 27-foot U-Haul and took it to Stockton with me. I put most of it in storage and I brought the rest to this apartment. I couldn't even fit half the shit in that apartment that I wanted to. You know, I had to go back to storage to put it away. So, you know, that was a huge shock, bro. I spent probably 2 weeks after that happened sitting in that fucking apartment just, if I contemplate if I wanted to live life or not, you know what I mean? So yeah, bro, when all that happened, like I said, I spent a good 2 weeks sitting in this little fucking apartment. Me and my dog, right? And they took my fucking dog to the pound too when I got in trouble, right?
What kind of dog was it?
It was a border collie mutt. Like I had him forever, but this dog saw.
He's been through some shit.
This dog lived in Hollywood. Lived in, went down to Malibu. You know, he's seen LA life.
Wait, you took him on all these trips?
I mean, I lived in LA. I moved to LA. Okay. I moved to LA for 2 years.
Oh wait, so this happened in LA?
No. This all happened in Sacramento.
Oh.
I remember I was doing this for a long time. Okay. Yeah. You know, at 23, I was living in LA making like 20 grand a fucking week. You know what I mean? Like it was on some shit. But anyways, take that part out. Fucking just, when I moved back to Stockton, and then when I moved back to Stockton, then I moved to Sac. The reason I moved to Sac is because I moved back to Stockton from LA because I was just getting in trouble out there for driving on suspended licenses and shit, right? And I moved back to Stockton, and like some of my friends, bro, like they weren't even, they were not as outgoing as even I am, and they were all about to graduate college. And I said to myself, I was like, fuck, dude. I can't be the one not graduating college. So I literally, when I moved back and I saw everyone was, doing school stuff, I was like, man, I'm gonna do this too. So I went to school, finished all that, and then I went to Sac State. I was either gonna go to Northridge in LA. I was gonna go back to LA and try to do that, or I was gonna go to Sacramento. Sacramento was just easier. But I went to Sacramento, then I went to Roseville because I was blowing up in Sac and I wanted, a bigger house. I wanted all these things. And Roseville, this is in 2014, Roseville was just getting big. And so I got a brand new house out there, and now that's what I was really living. But like I said, I went from all that, bro, and lost everything. I went to this fucking little apartment, off Ben Holt. And it was the hardest thing ever, bro. It was the hardest thing ever I went through in my life, and I went through it alone. My girlfriend at the time, who thought that she was going to be with me forever, left me within like 2 weeks of getting busted, and I lost everything at once, But
did you have any family?
Yeah. I mean, I'll get to that for sure. You can have family. I mean, bro, I had so many people around me before that. After that happened, a lot of people just stopped talking to me because, again, like I was hot, it was a problem, I just lost, went through a lot of shit.
They stopped talking to you because you stopped being successful, or you're like a liability?
It just, in the industry that I was in at that point, when someone gets raided and stuff.
Just didn't want to be associated,
no one wants to, they don't know if you're being watched, they don't know what's going on. So it's just kind of standard, everyone's going to leave you alone for a while. Right. And I would say, I would do the same thing, you know what I mean? But I had, I count on one hand. It was my mom, my dad, my sister, and two of my boys, right? They were just there for me for anything I needed, bro. And but even at that, you still got to be the one to go through it, bro. It's so much mental baggage that you got to think about, and I had a really hard time with that. But once I sat there long enough, I'm the type of person where, I need something to do all the time. Like I need to be doing something. I'm trying to make some money. I'm trying to progress. I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to, just do something better. And I sat there for 2 weeks, and at a point at that 2 weeks, I was like, all right, fuck. Like I need to do something. I need to fucking do something. And I just started applying for jobs. I literally I said, fuck it. If this is what route I'm gonna go, I'm just gonna start applying for fucking jobs. And I got a job being it was like a marketing director at this event pavilion out in Tracy. And I took that job, I went out there, I was making like fucking $15 an hour, It was like nothing, right? Like my checks were like $450 a week.
From making 20 grand a week to $450.
Yeah, that was probably, but still going from making a lot of money to nothing. And it was just funny because I remember I'd be sitting in the office with the owner, and I'd be talking to him about restaurants and all this stuff. And then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, they're thinking of their stuff. Like, how the fuck does he know about all these expensive ass places? He makes fucking $450.
You're all talking about going to Mastro's and Nobu and
talking about $450 dinners, And I did that for a little bit, but that wasn't sustaining shit. And I needed to do more than that. But once I did that, I was still in college at the same time. you know. And one of the biggest things I would say that got me out of what was going on is there's been a few people in my life that have just been extremely pivotal, whether they were in my life for, you know, a couple months or a couple years or a lifetime. There's been a few people that have just, I wouldn't have gone to the next level if I didn't have them. You know, the first person was a professor named Timothy Howard at Sac State, who was like the #1 PR teacher in like California or some shit like that. Like, bro, kids used to go up to his class wearing suits because they wanted to stand out to this teacher, right? Again, I was going to Sac State just I wanted to have a fucking degree, and I just wanted to just have that under my belt. And before I got in trouble, I didn't take school very seriously, bro. I was in there high as hell, like just bullshit, just getting my work done. And after I got into that trouble, you know, I probably had, there's 4 or 5 friends that I had in the public relations, major, who we all were just tight, and we all had the same classes, so we'd all group up, and everyone, you know, we were all really cool. And when that shit happened to me, you know, I remember I had to go, I took like a week off of school just because, you know, fuck, there was like a week I didn't have anywhere to live, and I was living at my boy's place in Sac, just because I was going to school. I could go to my parents, but I wasn't going to do that. And then when I got my apartment, then I was like, all right, I got to go back to school. I got to go fucking figure out what's going on. And one of the first people, when I went to school, I was like, I need to talk to Tim and Howard, because he was the teacher of like 4 of my classes. You know what I mean? I was gone for a week. And I remember one night, you know, because classes, I took every class, you know, till like 8 o'clock at night, and I was there all day.
This is Sac State, right?
Sac State, yeah, Sac State. And one night at the end of class, I mean, brother, he would have an hour. You'd have to wait an hour to talk to this dude because people were lining up to talk to this teacher, right? Like, it just everyone, like, he was known just for being the guy.
I was gonna say, like, what's so special about this guy?
You know, he used to work. I remember, you know, you hear stories about him, right? Like, he used to work for like the vice president, you know, of the United States, and like I don't know what administration or whatever. That was just something I'd heard, but just he was just very, you know, renowned, and everyone, you know, listened. And he told everyone, I remember in the beginning of the semester, he was like, you know, it's not up to me to learn your name, it's up to you to make me not forget your name or something, right? But anyways, kids would line up. He's got his little gem. People would line up to talk to this guy. And I just remember one night I waited over an hour just like I wanted to be the last person to talk to him. And, you know, I broke down to this guy. You know, he didn't even know who the fuck I was. And I broke down to him, and I started crying to him, just telling him about what happened to me. And, you know, that this is why I was being gone. And, you know, I just wanted to make him aware of it, and that I'm not, you know, ditching school or anything like that. And, bro, you know, God put him in my life for a reason, because this guy just... he's, like I said, the most renowned teacher, and he just took me under his fucking wing. Like that night, he gave me his cell phone number. He's like, Gio, he's like, call me tomorrow, you know, all these things. And I started taking school extremely serious after that. So, you know, I had a job, wasn't making much money, but I'd go to school, and I was taking that extremely serious. And he just put me in positions just like no other. There was an event at Sac State called the President's Convocation, right? Where, you know, I don't even know what convocation is, but the president came up there, you know, of Sac State, was doing all this talking, and he asked me, he's like, Gio, can you make backdrops, you know, to go on this huge projector when they're up there talking? And he gave me that job. Like, class would end like 8 o'clock at night. I went home that night, and again, I wasn't even that great at graphic design at that point. And I spent all night until like 4 a.m. making these backdrops, right? Sent that shit to him at 4 a.m., went back to school at 9 a.m., right? Went there the next day. And I swear to God, you know, we're in a, you know, what is it, like an arena class, but I mean, we're all, you know, the seats are going all the way up. You know what I mean? It was like an 80-person
Forum or something?
class. You know what I'm saying? 80, 100 kids in there, whatever it was. And I remember, bro, you know, I'm so embarrassed of myself. People would come up to me and be like, hey, bro, were you on TV? Because when I got in trouble, it was a big televised thing. It was bad. And I remember I went into class that day, and he started class out. He's like, hey, everybody. He's like, I just want to let you know we have the gold standard of graphic design in this classroom with us. I'm like, who the fuck is he talking about? And he's like Giovanni, Giovanni, stand up. But I stood up in front of the whole fucking class, and everyone starts like clapping for me, right? And I was like, bro, like, that's crazy, right? And it was just, like I said, he just pushed me so far forward that even these kids that were, you know, they're so professional and serious, like they had to show me some love just because he was showing me so much love. And he made going to school while I was fucking fighting a court case for my life, you know, he made that just one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. And I graduated during my court stuff. I graduated, and he wrote letters to the judge for me, like all these things. Like, he wrote some amazing things in these letters, right? That I just didn't expect anyone to write for me. And that was just he was a big cog in what may push me forward, you know. And I think, you know, his belief in me put belief in myself. And I think one of the coolest things is like when you're down and out, you know, you got to have an amazing amount of belief and an amazing amount of resilience in yourself. But if there's, you know, if you're in a position where you're in a high position and you're helping people, you know, I mean, I feel like that's just as admirable as anything, bro. Like when you're in a position you don't need to help people and you do, you know, I just think that really says something about people like that. And I have the utmost respect.
Before meeting that professor, was there any time during your stay there at Sac State where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just go back to doing what I used to be doing?
No, I mean, I was doing that while I was at Sac State.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
still.
I was doing it at Sac State. Yeah. You know, I mean, I had a lot. I met a lot of people out there for what I was doing. People knew me over there for what I was doing.
Okay.
So I mean, I would have fun at school. You know, but you know, I had fun at school just trying to make money. You know what I mean? Now it was just a different type of fun, where I was just enjoying what I was doing. You know, scholastically, I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool. I joined. You know, I joined clubs. You know, I joined the PRSSA, the Student Society of America. We went to fucking conferences out in San Jose. Like I was doing all this. I was so schooled out. You know what I mean? I was all about school, and that was cool. You know, and during that time, you know, when I was working as the event director, I stopped. I wanted more. You know what I mean? Like I saw what I was doing at school. I was balling out of school, and I was doing that. And I got a job doing traffic planning for a company for PG&E, and that was another thing because there was a guy who owned that company. His name was Rob Beatles, and he was just an entrepreneur himself. And again, these people didn't know what I was going through. You know, every job interview I went to, I just prayed to God that they didn't recognize me from the news for being this dude who got busted for growing a shitload of weed. You know, and I went to that job, and I started doing traffic planning, which paid way better. You know, I went from, you know, a double, a triple. I was making a lot more money doing traffic planning. But, you know, that was just sitting in front of a fucking computer drawing maps all day. And I think part of the reason why why God let me ball out when I was younger is because I got to see what life, you know, what living good was like, you know. And when it all got taken away from me, it just put, you know, I want it back. You know what I mean? Like I want that shit back so fucking bad. I'm still fighting to get back to the feeling I used to have.
He gave you a taste. He let you see
let
what
me get a
life
taste.
is looking like when you're successful.
But now I don't want success, you know, just the easy way. You know, I want it the hard way. You know, I want it the real way, a way that can't be taken away from me at any point, you know?
Where do you think this all stemmed from? Like, did you grow up broke? Did you see like your parents struggle? Like, where did this hustler spirit that you have come from?
You know, I grew up in a good house, bro. My parents always took care of me. You know, there was, you know, I wasn't, you know, a rich kid or anything by that. I mean, but I wasn't, you know, I didn't grow up in poverty. You know, I don't know. You know, I just think I saw from a young age, I used to have two, 3 jobs as a kid. I used to work at 13 years old. I worked at a hip hop like store in the mall. And I went in there at 13 and the guy just took a liking to me and gave me a job and told me, he's like, when people come in here, you got to tell them you're 18. I couldn't even legally have that job.
Do you think it's one of those things where it's like you're born with it or you learn to be a hustler or both? Like, it just sounds like, because everything that you're saying, it sounds like you were just born
to do it. Yeah. Just comes natural to you.
You know, I just, I guess you would say born. I couldn't tell you, bro. You know, I just know that I've always wanted more for myself. And I've always seen people around me that had more than I did. Well, you know, again, I didn't, you know, grow, I wasn't poor or nothing like that, but I was around a lot of my friends just had a lot more money than me, you know, and I was around some hustlers that, you know, older than me, some older guys that, you know, they were just doing it. And I saw that money and I saw what came with it.
So you were inspired by like your circle.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I was inspired by, you know, the people I was around for sure. Just the people I saw, you know, other people around.
I think that's why it's so important to curate the people that you have around you. Like we talk about this all the time, just like audit your circle, because bro, you have the wrong people around you. They can either drag you down or they can shoot you up to the top. You know what I mean? Like if you have people around you with limiting mindsets, that shit will eventually, it's contagious. It'll eventually rub off on you.
You know, I did a lot, you know, being a hustler and doing the things I was doing, a lot of it was just on me. You know, I spent a lot of nights on my own. Like when everyone was going out partying, I was just going around making money. You know, I wasn't, you know, everyone's going out having fun. I was just trying to go to the places where I could pick up some bread. And I think one of the things I learned is that the people you'll see people around you that are either going to excel or people around you that are going to stay exactly where they are. And the further I got ahead, I would see the people that were still at the same spot, and that would just motivate me even more to never want to go back to that.
But you know what's cool about that, bro, is because you've actually mentioned this multiple times already. The better you did, you still gave back. Like, you still put people on.
Yeah, I mean, I think because people put me on. The only reason why I got really good at doing the things that I was doing is because I had some older homies that were just like that showed me the way. And there's two people that I can't mention names, but two people that really put me on in the weed game, and literally I helped them make money obviously too, but they put me on. They didn't put no one else on like that. They didn't do that for nobody else. And I think it was just because those people saw like I was really about making money, and that they could make money off me, with me, whatever. But I was ready to do that. And when I have friends around me that aren't doing, they can't go spend all this money on trips like I could, I wanted them to do it too. I'm not trying to pay for them. I want them to do it for themselves. And hopefully that inspires somebody else to do something. Like I said, you could be down and out, and you could be a really hard worker, and that's amazing. But when you're up, I think it's about when you're up, it's just how you treat the people below you. Not even below you, but just how you just treat anybody. Because you never know when you're going to need somebody, bro. Like, you're never up forever, and, God willing, you're never down forever. You know what I mean? But
Sorry to cut you off. So talking to the audience right now, let's say someone's in that position where like, man, I'm not scaling up. I don't have that group around me that's helping me push forward, and I just don't know where to go. Like, what would you tell them right now where they're at, where they're just stuck?
I mean, if you feel stuck, I would say if you feel stuck, go sit down for a second and think of the top 3 things that are holding you back. And the first thing that you fucking think of is probably the one that you need to address first. The one that's probably going to be the hardest one to address, and that's probably but it's going to be the thing that helps you. I'm a big believer. I'm a God-fearing man. I believe in God, and I believe that there are certain things that get put in your life to test you, and you got to make a decision. I mean, are you going to go down the easy way, or are you going to go the hard way? And that hard way is maybe giving up some shit that's comfortable to you, maybe giving up some vices that you have in your life. And for me, every time I've gone through something hard, I've had to take a hard look at myself and say, what is really holding me back, and just be honest with myself. And I think that's the first step. I believe everything is God has a plan for me, and it's no matter what I do, what God wants to have happen is going to happen to me. That's what I truly believe in my heart. And so I just think that doing right and showing him that I want all the blessings that he can give me, I just believe in that, bro. And whenever I can't see the light of what's going to come to me, I just try to work extremely hard and just try to cut out anything that can hinder me from that. And every time I've done that and done it seriously for a period of time, I've seen results. And I can't give you some formula that makes that work. But I just truly believe that God is watching you, and if he knows you want it bad enough, and you do it long enough, you're gonna get it.
And I think that's one of the biggest factors that you just alluded to right now. You just gotta want it. You know what I mean? A lot of me and myself included, right? I want these races. I want to get fast. I want to stop drinking whiskey. You know what I mean? But ultimately, it's like, do I really want it, right? And then going back to what you were saying, you got to ask yourself those questions, you know what I mean? And the first one that comes to mind is really the one you need to address. And I think, and I speak for myself, like, I struggle with that, you know what I mean? Because that's the one I don't want to let go of. But no, man, I appreciate you putting the audience on game, me on game, on how to take a step back and look at what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off what he said, I think a lot of times we think that we should be doing something extra or we should be adding something in, but a lot of times it's just about removing some of the stuff that we're already doing, like learning to say no to things instead of just piling on stuff that really is not helping us. So, bro, I mean, I love the fact that you made it. You messed up your life, you fucked up your life, and then you crawled out of that hole. Like, I think there's something special about people who just go, and I think that's what makes, oh, thank you. I think it's something special about, like, somebody who can, like, put themselves in a position where, bro, there's no hope. Like, there's literally no hope in sight, but like, you find a way. And like, I really want to talk about, like, have you always had like a really good relationship with God? Just like having.
No, I mean, bro, most people don't start looking for that relationship with God until you're in your darkest hour and you need him, you know what I mean? But I do just believe that, God doesn't care when you come to him as long as you come to him, and I don't think it matters, if you're, like, God knows your heart, I feel like, you know what I mean? And I believe if you're gonna, when you need him, he's gonna be there, but, he'll get you to a certain point, but he's not going to take you any higher until you start, believing in yourself and start just doing the right things. You know what I mean?
There's this saying in Spanish. You're Italian?
Italian.
Italian? Italian, yeah. There's this
Shout out our Italians.
Italian, Greek, and Mexican.
Italian, Greek, and Mexican.
Yeah.
Do you speak Spanish?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
There's this saying where I come from, and I'm saying in Spanish, and then I'll translate. Dios aprieta, pero no horca, right? God will hold you tight, but he's never going to choke you. You know what I mean? So he's putting you in those situations, but at the same time, to what you just said, he's going to show you a way, but you got to find your way out. You know what I mean? And that's very important in just having that self-belief, you know what I mean? Because I pride myself on praying and talking to him, but I'm not expecting him to reciprocate right away, you know what I mean? Because I'm on my own journey. And if he was just there to give me handouts and all right, you're good now, you know what I mean? Yeah, everybody would be good. And then what would we be learning? Nothing, right? There would be no struggle. And I think part of us becoming someone in our journeys is having that struggle. And you're a testament to that. And going back to what X is saying, how is that relationship like?
I mean, bro, I pray every night at the edge of my fucking bed. I pray for certain people, and I talk to God. I'm not a big, avid churchgoer. I'll be honest with you with that. That's probably the next thing, that I need to take that next step. But to my personal opinion is, as long as you have a relationship with God, you believe and you do what you think you should be doing, I think God sees that, whether you're in a church seat or you're, just you're at home praying to him. You know what I mean? I just think you have to. You just got to believe, bro. And that's been my biggest thing. One of my biggest things, the last few years is just fucking believing. The things I went through with, obviously before legally, the things that happened there, that forced me to make a big change in my life from doing illegal things to doing legal things. Now, as I get into business and I've fallen in business, when I fell, a few years ago with all the things happening with business, because I was learning again. And as I scaled, I learned new things and I took those problems. And that damn near felt more bleak to me than when I got in trouble the first time. I was like, what the fuck? I just spent all these years doing this and I could lose it all. And again, it was just, I had to, when you get to that next level, there's a new level of discipline. There's a new level of things you got to cut out. And I might have been able to still party and do those things when I cut out doing the illegal shit. But now, for me to get to the next level, I got to cut those things out. And I just think that's what you have to do, You have to be willing to give something up to get something else. So
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think there's like a perspective shift, kind of like what you were talking about, how like when things happen to you, like bad things happen to you, you have to really think like it's not happening to me, it's happening for me, for my development, right? And religious people might not agree with me here, but I believe that God looks down on us. And this is kind of to your point, but I feel like God looks down on us and he truly sees who's trying and who's not. And like the people that he sees that are actually trying to better their lives and to hustle, eventually, it might not happen right away, but eventually I think he says, you know what? This one is trying so hard. Let me shoot him some blessings. Let me just eventually help him out. This one doesn't really try. He prays to me. He wants all these things, but he's not out there working. So I always think that prayer is like this two-part activity where you pray to God for the things that you want in life, but then you also have to go out and work for it. Like you have to put in the work, like hold up your end of the deal, and he will always hold up his end of the deal. That's how I feel like.
I think you gotta, you have to suffer. What I say, there's no light without darkness and all those things. And I forget who said it, but they're like, if you want to be a main character in this world, in this life, you gotta show God that you are willing to do what everyone else won't, to have the things that everyone else doesn't. And I'm bro, like I said, I've lost all my shit. I've lost everything before. I'm willing to do whatever the fuck I got to do, whatever it's going to take. And I think, like I said, if I do that long enough and I don't give up, it's going to happen for sure. And I believe that for sure. If that wasn't true, then everyone would, be wherever level of success they wanted. Everyone have it. There's a reason why people aren't where they want to be. And I think that's just because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not putting in the work for it. Then you see certain people that are born into things and just they're at that level and you're just like, fuck, dude, they're not having to sacrifice this, that, and that. But someone did, someone along in their family lineage, someone had to sacrifice to get everyone put on.
And what Ed Milet says, be the one. That's like his thing. He's like the one in the family that changes like the whole trajectory of your family, like the whole lineage.
Straight up. I think that's a real thing. So, like I said, I have no problem being the one to suffer through all those things, to, just be able to provide for my family, my girl, my daughters, like just to really take care of people.
Suffering
bro.
is such a beautiful thing, man.
It is.
I don't look at suffering like a bad thing. It's just one of those things that you have to go through if you want to better your life.
I mean, bro, you're not winning. You're not doing your 100-mile fucking race if you don't suffer for a shitload of time in that. I think anything worth getting is going to take some degree of, sacrifice, suffering, whatever you want to say. Like I said, to get anything good, you got to go through something bad. Not necessarily legally, not necessarily pain, but you got to go through some hard fucking work to get to it. And that's why most people don't get to it, because they don't go through hard work.
Changing lanes a little bit. We're getting towards the tail end. How's Gio today? You mentioned your husband. Are you a husband?
No, I have a girlfriend.
Okay, girlfriend. Your father of how many daughters?
I have one daughter and I have a stepdaughter.
One daughter, stepdaughter. So what's life right now?
I mean, look, the last year has been such a blessing to me, just because I feel like I've gotten on track with so many things that went wrong with business. My biggest thing in this last year has been systems, bro. It's literally systems on systems on systems, whether that's with how I operate my family, how I'm operating with business, putting systems in place and following those systems, as tedious and as hard as they are. Again, just doing all these little things to make the next day better. I think for a long period of time I was taking, I would put things, I put things off. I would take, tomorrow's pleasures for today, and then tomorrow would be that much harder. You know what I mean? And now it's about taking as much on as I can each day to make the next day easier. And as I compile those days of little tiny wins and just little tiny things that are going to progress me forward with systems, to make sure that my guys are working right, make sure my shops are going right, my money's going right. It's just making the next day that much better. And that's what I've done the last year. And I think that's my next level of business, is learning systems, because that to me has brought so much more peace in my fucking life. Because the last few years, prior to, like I said, the last year, where I just had so much shit coming at me, and I'm just attacking it as it comes at me, where instead of being proactive and putting things in place to make, when those things come at me, there's already a system in place to handle it. And I've just seen, even this year, I've just seen so much. My life ain't peaceful, but I've just seen so much more peace than I have in the past, and that makes me extremely. It makes me extremely believing. I believe that it's going to get even better in the future. So I'm just going to keep doing that, bro. But things are going great, and I know it's because of the work that I'm putting in. So I'm just going to keep doing that over and over, and just hopefully see things get easier and easier. So life's good. Life's good. I can't complain, bro. Everything that I got on my plate right now, I've worked to get it on my plate. So, man, bro, I'm telling you. But you got to be humble enough to say that I still don't know everything. So there's going to be something that's going to happen to me tomorrow that I'm going to have to fucking deal with. But I try not to get too high. I try not to get too low on myself. And every day I start over. You know what I mean? Whether I had an amazing day today, whether I had a horrible fucking day today, you're going to go to bed. I wake up the next morning at 3 a.m. I go to the fucking gym. I feel better about myself. And then I'm just ready to take on whatever's going to happen. Yeah. And you got to be able to I think that's a big thing too. You got to be able to reset every single day. You can't carry the highs too long. You can't carry the lows too long, because that's just going to give you problems the next day, or just in the future.
And especially that reset. I mean, I have 2 little girls as well. I'm in logistics, right? Outside of photography and the Becoming Someone pod, to where, like, man, the hustle and bustle of everything. stuff going on. There's systems in place that are not being followed. And there was times in my life, because I've been in it 15 years now, where I was taking it home, right? I wasn't resetting, you know what I mean, to where like the wear and tear, like my kids and my lady would see it, right? So I think it's important to what you're saying, like leaving everything behind, and it's a reset for tomorrow. All right, tomorrow we start fresh again, right? What did we learn yesterday to not make the mistake tomorrow? And it's something as little as I was telling my team today. I'm huge on, you gotta clean your area, right? If you don't clean your area, like that means the business is not important to you. So I told him today, I'm like, hey guys, we're getting really close. You know what I mean? I keep telling you guys, let's clean as we go. If we clean as we go, we have a clean business. But it doesn't seem like anyone wants to clean as we go. So you know what? Everyone, today we're going to start off our shift. The first 15 minutes, I don't care if we have drivers, if there's phones ringing, we're grabbing our broom, we're all going to clean. You know what I mean? Because I think that's important. We need to have a clean business in order to operate cleanly to be efficient.
Just like a form of reset.
Yeah.
For sure.
I almost think that's almost like a red flag. If you have certain people that aren't about it like that, that could be a scary
I
thing
mean, that's
too.
that's the problem with working a corporate business. You have no control over that. You know, like people just get by. I mean, I work at the county too, so it's a double-edged sword. Accountability. There's not a lot of accountability, so it's good if you don't really want to, if you just want to float on by. But for the people who are hustlers and people trying to, work really hard, they got to carry the weight of those people who are not putting in their, their fair share. But just kind of wrap things up, bro. We do end the pod with 2 questions, one from Marco, one from myself. I always like wisdom, I like experience, and I like to kind of just ask, what would the Gio of today tell younger Gio? Let's just say, I don't know, 25-year-old Gio, that would help him navigate through life and to be successful and to just find his way that you now know that you didn't know then?
Success isn't like one big event. In my opinion, success is built over a long period of time of consistency and discipline and, motivating yourself without other people, without outside motivation. Success to me right now, it's just doing the little things every day, because that's over time, that's what's going to matter, and that's what's going to make you.
That's good. That was good. Was that ChatGPT?
No, that's my
from
thought.
the heart?
That's my thought. That's my
That
thought.
was Geo, baby. That was that. Geo GPT. Geo GPT. Hey, that's dope. Geo GPT. Bro, I think we have an idea there. Geo GPT.
I'll take that. I will still be working with ChatGPT, but I mean,
Okay.
Collaborate
yeah,
every once in a while.
collaborate for sure.
So we have a segment we do to close every episode with our guest. It's 3 questions in one.
I thought it was 2 questions.
Mine's 3 questions in one, and it's love one, leave one, fight one, and you got to tell us why. So love one, leave one, fight one. The hustle and grind of building a brand, creative control and not following trends with your company. And last one, having everything being taken away from you.
I mean, what were the first 2?
The hustle and grind of building and creative control and not following trends.
What is creative control? Like, explain a little bit more.
So like with let's say Birds, right? And this company, like not following trends of what others are doing.
So autonomy, like being able to do whatever you want.
Yeah, but not necessarily like, oh, Nike's doing this, I should do this.
But I got to love one, leave one, and what?
You got to love one, leave one, and fight one.
Fight one. Just confused me here. The third thing that you said, what was it? Just giving up?
Having everything taken away from you.
I mean, I'll fight that easily. That's not a problem for me. I'll fight that. And love would be, what was the first thing we said? We got to cut this up a lot.
No, it's okay.
The hustle and grind of building a brand.
I love that. I love that. And then
To leave one was the
I mean, I don't know.
creative control, you said?
I mean, I can't see any way, even if I was in a structured environment, that I wouldn't still find a way to be creative. So, I mean, I just say that. I could leave that, but I don't think it's ever really going to leave me in my decisions. You know what I mean? I don't really, I don't really go with the flow of what everyone else is doing. And so,
So you're
So that's
against
perfect.
the grain kind of guy.
yeah. Because I mean, everyone out there goes with the grain is just fucking there. You know what I mean? Anyone that makes a difference or anyone that's something different is going against it somehow.
So love the grind, leave the creative control, and you're always gonna fight taking it away from you. Things getting taken away.
Have to, yeah. 'Cause I don't think they could.
Because I don't think you would be who you are today without that.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not.
Well, man. Well, thank you for coming on. I
Man,
really
thank you guys for
appreciate
having me, for
you.
real.
I, personally, I've been your friend for a few years now, and I think since I've met you, the one thing that I've admired about you is your hustle. Like, it really is part of your identity. You've always been a go-getter. Despite whatever happens to you in life, you always find a way. And that's what I've noticed. So I just wanted to tell you, my friend, I admire you, and I appreciate you having you in my corner and calling you a friend.
Man, well, I appreciate the kind words, and bro, you're always somebody that I've seen who just does so many things, and you're fighting on your own, you're doing your thing, and I have immense respect for you do so well for yourself, and you still find new challenges, and you still attack those challenges. And I think that's where we can kind of relate on a lot of things, bro, because you sacrifice a lot to do what you're doing, and it's not easy. There's not that many buff nurses out there.
There's not.
You know what I'm saying?
There's only one.
Who runs 100 fucking miles, so bro, I respect the hell out of you and everything you're doing, bro, for real. I know we just met here.
Yeah, bro, but
but
hey.
you're in logistics. I know you're killing the logistics game, and
More to come.
yeah, for sure.
We definitely got to have you back again.
Man, I'd love to, bro. I'd love to. I really appreciate it. I'm honored just for you to even think of me as someone that you would want to have on here.
Absolutely,
For real.
bro.
So, where can the people find you? Instagram, company name, for those that missed it at the beginning of the pod, websites. Where can we find you?
I mean, my Instagram is Johnny Birds Co. That's going to be just my personal page. Create Print Design. That's the printing company. Birds_Co 36.
You know I had to rock it today.
Those are my three spots. And then we actually have a new Instagram now. It's just Giovanni.Viscara. That's where I'm kind of putting out just more of my public self.
The personal public.
Personal public stuff. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There you have it, people. Gio, a.k.a. Mr. Hustle and Grind, baby. If you didn't pick up any gems on this pod, I don't know what you were doing. Maybe you just weren't listening. But it was a huge honor having Gio on the pod. Give us a follow, comments, like, and subscribe. Shoot us a DM. If you want Gio back, hit us up, and we'll definitely have him back. And we'll talk about some other stories of business or whatever you guys want to listen to. X.
Whether you want him back or not, he's coming back.
Hell yeah.
We'll see you at the next episode.